Hello world, hello everyone. Happy Self-Care Saturday. I know some people practice self-care Sundays, so maybe I should just say happy self-care weekend. I think that will cover it for everyone. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. I would like to share something about my own personal healing journey. Something that I was not aware of at the beginning of it, and I definitely was not really aware of it before I started this journey. Had I known, it would have definitely saved me a lot of confusion, and to be honest, I think it would have saved me from a lot of really dark moments where I was really spiritually having to pretty much fight for my life. And I'm not going to go that deep into it, but I do want to talk today about the spiritual aspect of healing. I'm going to be speaking from a Christian perspective. I understand that not everyone has the same beliefs or shares the same, spiritual practices. And that's the beauty of freedom to choose what spiritual practices we get to explore, but I'm going to be speaking today from a Christian perspective. So there are different aspects to healing. There's the emotional healing aspect, there's a physical healing aspect, and there is, the emotional goes a lot of times with healing the mind and our thought processes, transforming our thought processes. But there's also a spiritual component to it. And why do I say that? I say that for a couple of reasons. So in the Bible, it's in Jeremiah. I wrote it down because while I remember verses and ideas, concepts, my memory with remembering numbers, I don't know. Maybe someday it will get there. But in Jeremiah 1:5, it says, God says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Which is something that before my spiritual journey, even though I had been a Christian for years, even though I had gone to church for years, I was completely oblivious to this. Before I was even in my mother's belly, forget even before I was being carried in her uterus, before I was born into the world, even before I was in her uterus, God knew me. So I don't know, I'm not a theologian, so maybe a theologian would disagree with me, but to me, that means that somewhere my spirit being existed. There are also verses all throughout. I'm not going to bother giving them because they're all over the place. But if you just Google I have plans for you and I made plans for you even before the foundations of the world. If you just kind of Google that phrase, you will see all sorts of verses in Ephesians, in 1 Peter, in Acts, in Revelations, all over in the Bible. I think there's about 33 of them where God says that he actually had plans for us even before the world existed. So to me, that means that I had to have existed somewhere before, or God knew that he was going to create me somewhere before time as I know it began. So this to me, personally, was hugely transformational, knowing that as a woman, as a human, and that there was some sort of spiritual component to my life. And so not only was it important for me to take care of my physical by, exercising, and we all have different ways of exercising. My preferred way is to either dance or take a walk, right? Some people like to go to the gym and just work it out. Some people like boxing. Some people like running, doing triathlons, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. We all have our preferences, and there's that physical component. the nutrition component, right? Eating good foods that are healthy for our bodies versus chemicals or genetically modified things, right? Eating natural fruits, vegetables, depending on what your dietary preference are, right? Natural grass-fed, free-range meats. So there's the physical aspect to our health that needs to be healthy. There's the emotional and our minds, right? We can have things done to us. We can have gone through very abusive, traumatic events where people have literally, and it could be a parent, it could be a former lover, it could be, God forbid, your best friend, but it could be a friend, it could be co-workers, but people who program, it could be the media, right? That program our minds to think that, oh, we have to look a certain way, or we have to behave a certain way, or we have to please people, right? We have to be perfect. We have to have this perfect appearance. We have to have this perfect, we have to do everything perfectly, even like the school system, right? And I'm a teacher, but sometimes it's really punitive in like instilling these like crazy ideas of perfectionism, and it's like been programmed into our brains since we were little. And so, transforming our brains to no longer believe those things and actually heal our minds so that we have new identities and we understand it's okay when we don't do things perfectly, right? If we make a mistake, we do not have to emotionally beat ourselves up, and we definitely don't need to be physically beaten for it. So there's the whole emotional, mental part. But then, and a lot of times I think what I see, not everywhere, so I see different levels to this, but a lot of times I think affirmations have become, this is my personal opinion, have become, and affirmations are great, right? It's great for me to wake up in the morning and say, hello, Beth, hello, beautiful, right? It's great for me to say that, Beth, you are a loving woman, right? It's great, right? These are ways of helping us transform our minds to begin believing truths about ourselves versus lies about ourselves, right? But it's still only addressing, these affirmations are only addressing one facet of us as a human, and that would be our mind. And our minds are super powerful. They're super fascinating. I'm not a neuroscientist. But I listen to them speak on podcasts, and I mean, our brains are just phenomenal. It's amazing what they can do, how powerful they are in directing where we go in life, right? So it's definitely, I'm not knocking, healing and transforming our minds and our thought processes. I think it's clearly very important. It's been very important on my healing journey personally, transforming some false beliefs and understanding they were not true, and then understanding what is true about me, right? And begin believing that and walking in that, right? Walking in that confidently and learning how to transform. But it still doesn't address that spiritual component, which has existed for longer than we, I think, are often aware of. For those of you who are Christian, you may have heard, I'm looking at the exact reference, Ephesians 2:6, where it says, we who are believers in Jesus are seated in heavenly realms with Jesus. So it's kind of, again, like God exists outside of time, so it's already been done for us. Everything has already, nothing surprises God. When we mess up, there's no reason to beat ourselves up over it, because it's not surprising to God that, oops, she messed up and she lied. He's not shocked, like maybe churches have led us to believe. But it's already been done. We already are in like heavenly places. So, again, this is just speaking about the fact that, there is a spiritual woman, a spiritual man, and we want to be spiritually healthy just like we want to be physically, emotionally, and mentally healthy. It all goes together. I'm going to speak specifically in a little bit more detail about forgiveness. So this, in my opinion, is kind of a combination of physical, the mental, and the spiritual. And why do I say that? Because when someone hurts us, and some of us have been hurt like in ways that are unspeakable, unimaginable, right? Sometimes the trauma is like crazy, wild, deep. People have survived genocides in the world and had to heal from that, right? From rapes, from, domestic violence situations. So, I'm not trying to minimize anything, but we do have to learn how to forgive. And forgiveness in itself is a process. And I think this is a spiritual process where we haven't really understood it clearly. I think a lot of times churches have, and I'm not against people going to church, but a lot of times there have been a lot of people who have, and pastors and people who have just been like, oh, well, just forgive. And then and then people think, oh, well, I just have to forgive and stuff and shove all of this hurt and pain away. And actually, spiritually, that will kill us, because then we're stuffing emotions and we're not dealing with emotions, and we're thinking we have to instantly forgive. Right? When someone does something really awful to us, it becomes part of our muscle memory, right? That pain, like if a woman has been raped, it also is even remembered in her muscles, that experience, that fear, that panic, that anger, whatever those feelings were that she was feeling, that helplessness, we remember it in our muscles. We also remember it in our minds, right? Those emotions we felt. But there is the spiritual aspect, and it says in Matthew 6:14-15 that if we forgive others, we will be forgiven by God. And if we refuse to forgive people, God will not forgive us. And if we have not been forgiven, he also will not be bothering to listen to our prayers. So this, for me, I struggled a lot with forgiving someone, like an incredible amount. In fact, this went on for a couple years where I was like blatantly like, I don't want to forgive. No. Well, what it did is it opened me up, and I'm not going to really go into a lot of that today, but it opened me up to some like really major attacks in my life. And I didn't really get very far. Now, I did have dreams where I was being told to forgive others. I would like open up passages in my Bible, and I would see things jump out at me at forgiveness. At one point, I literally was halfway around the world. I get into this car. Within 5 minutes, the driver is talking about forgiveness and unforgiveness and the problems. And I'm like, really? I can't go anywhere. So clearly, I was getting the message that I had to forgive, but I was really refusing to do so. And as a result, things were getting really very, very dark for me. And I wasn't really getting anywhere. Once I was able to forgive him, and it took a bit of time for me to get it through my stubborn head, and to really, really, really understand what forgiveness is. It's not excusing someone's behavior, it's simply releasing them of a debt, of what they owe you. But things started to shift in my life, and not just shift, they actually started to open up. So opportunities started opening up again to me, and just actually my mind was able to open up. I didn't even realize how holding on to this unforgiveness, it was actually making my mind, my thought process, my thinking like very small. So forgiveness is, such a very key component. It's not something that's easy. Like I said earlier, our bodies have muscle memories. So sometimes things happen. Like, for example, a person could go for a massage, right? And they could get a massage, and as soon as the masseuse touches that person may start crying, right? Because the touch evoked some sort of memory in their muscle that like triggered like this emotional response, right? It's all connected. But when we heal spiritually, it also helps to open our minds up to begin healing. This was my experience. Once I forgave him, I was able to, it was like my understanding for not just that situation, but for other situations, even like my understandings in business, my understandings just everywhere. It was like my mind began to open up, and I was processing, I was really seeing things in new ways. And it was that forgiveness, that gift that I chose to give, and chose to stop withholding, right? That really opens that up for me in my mind, as well as when I chose to forgive, a lot of the dark things that I was going through spiritually started to dissipate, started to calm down. So this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand. I think a lot of people don't understand how complex we are. This healing journey, if we're really going to go on it, is work. Things like forgiveness are work. Things, may happen that trigger certain feelings in us, and bring up those emotions or those thoughts or those memories from, years ago of a crisis or a trauma that we went through. But it's so important that, on Self-Care Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 365 days a year, every day, right? We're doing our best to take care of our, not just bodies, not just our minds and our emotions, but also our spiritual woman and man that's inside of us, okay? It's hard to see sometimes the inside of us, right? So, we can put on masks and we can pretend, which happens a lot of times in churches. Someone might be going through a crazy time in their life, for all sorts of different reasons, and they just put on a smile and they're like, yeah, I'm blessed and highly favored. Meanwhile, their life is falling apart, and it's the exact opposite. So, it's so important that we are honest with ourselves, and not everyone deserves to really hear all of our stories and to really know where we are in life, right? Not everyone deserves all that information. But just in general, to be honest, especially with ourselves, where we're at physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And it was the spiritual part of my journey that was really what brought me through into being able to transform on an emotional and mental level, as well as a physical level. So if you are interested in support with this, I do have a program. It works on transforming our minds, our thought processes, our perspectives. It works on transforming and healing our hearts, which deals on a spiritual aspect, and I go more deeply into that in that program, as well as healing our physical bodies. So I'd be more than happy to chat with you and share with you and learn about you, and if it would be, even beneficial or helpful to you to take this program, because it's not for everyone. It is from a Christian perspective for starters, because so much of my breakthrough was in the emotional and mental part, as well as the physical aspect was from, healing my spiritual woman, the spiritual part of me. So it's done from a Christian perspective. So like I said, it's definitely not a program that's for everyone. If you're atheist, it would be very confusing to you. But yes, so feel free to reach out and touch base with me if you would like my support, or I can also send you, some other resources if you're not looking to heal, more on a spiritual level. I can send you some resources and some guides as well to, maybe point you in a more appropriate direction for your journey. If, my strategies, my tools would not be beneficial for you, there's definitely information out there for you, and I can help you get that. So, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your self-care, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be anything major. It could be something small, like laughing and, like watching a funny movie and just laughing. Laughter is also medicine for the soul. It's good for us to laugh. Now I'm going to get onto another tangent. But you know what, like if you think about it, laughter, what does that involve? That involves like your belly muscles, right? Especially if you're really laughing. Sometimes your belly can ache. It's like a whole body experience. And it's healing, because then our muscles start having new memories and we start giving them, funny memories in this case. So it's good medicine for our souls and our bodies to laugh. So whatever it is, laughing, smiling, picking a flower for yourself, something. Enjoy your self-care weekend. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys soon.